Welcome to the late Minyan, the late night Minyan with Rabbi Chai Posner. That's me. We all know it's not really a late night Minyan because we wouldn't have such a big crowd on a snow day. It was a late night Minyan. But we are here this evening with two special guests to hear from them about how YCT has stayed with them as rabbis in two different shuls and different communities. Let's bring out our first guest, Rabbi Adam Scheier, Senior Rabbi of Congregation Scheier Shemayim, Montreal, Canada. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Rabbi Scheier, how would you compare this year's dinner to last year's dinner?
Wow. You know, I've been to every dinner, every YCT dinner for the last 15 years.
Anyone else out there been to every YCT dinner? Rabbi Linzer, Scheier.
Just let me hear, I really want to hear a show of applause. Who was there at the first YCT dinner 15 years ago? Wow. So, some dinners I remember, some dinners I don't. Last year was very special. And I was thinking, not about last year, but as I came in tonight, I was thinking about the very first year. Those who were there will remember that it was, I think that was the first year. It was in this big bank building that had been created into the Gotham Bank. And there was this, I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but there was a contrast between the bank and the institution. And the bank was 10 stories tall inside, this grand hall with gilded walls, and it was just, it expressed a sense of permanence, of establishment. We are here. And the yeshiva in that first dinner, there were a lot of question marks about the yeshiva. And I think 15 years later, we're not in the bank anymore. And I think part of the reason is because we don't have that much to prove. Because YCT is here. There are no question marks anymore. So it's great to be here this year in the bite.
Amazing. Coming all the way from Montreal, Canada. And we have another rabbi here visiting, not from another country, from another state, from St. Louis. Rabbi Ben Greenfield is here in his second year as the rabbi of Base Abraham Congregation in St. Louis. Welcome. Oh, okay. A Chovevei welcome.
Oh man, hi, great being here.
Welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're my second guest ever.
I have to say, the last time I was here was 2 years ago, and 2 years ago I wasn't a rabbi. 2 years ago I was a student, and the whole feeling is very, very different. So, for example, 2 years ago when I was in a space like this, and if somebody would sort of say out the word like rabbi, I would see like 50 heads turn all in the same direction, and I would think to myself, like, I'm not that. I'm not him. But now, when I'm in a room like this and somebody calls out rabbi, and I see all the heads turn, I think to myself, I hope I'm not him. So it's a completely different experience. But also, it's been hundreds of drashas, it's been 2 Yamim Noraim, it's been B'nai Mitzvah, and funerals, and ufrafs, and a lot has changed in the last 2 years.
And we know what shuls are like.
Yes.
But tell us what you've brought to your shul. Did you bring your personality there at all?
Okay, so I want to tell you about one thing that I've brought to Beis Abe in St. Louis, a new minhag. This is what we do. Saturday night after Marv's, we make Havdalah, and we always finish Havdalah with juggling. That's our new minhag.
Juggling.
Juggling. So it's amazing.
I don't think we covered that in Rabbi Linzer's Modern Orthodoxy class.
No, so this is really what we do. So after we finish Havdalah, before Havdalah, I come down, I bring out a bunch of juggling balls, I put them sort of like next to the samim, and as soon as we're done, my congregants, the kids, adults, myself, we pick up these balls, and that's just part of our Havdalah experience. It's our new minhag, and I really love it. And the main reason I love it, I have to say, is because if somebody told you that there was like some Hasidus out there, that's just like what they did. Everybody knows like the Yugler Hasidim. After Havdalah, they always juggle. Wouldn't you buy it? Right? Like, it's so wholesome. We had that technology. So I just feel like let's just start it, and people will think that it began hundreds of years ago. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Juggling after Havdalah. Whoever heard of that?
Exactly.
But listen, Ben, do you guys, anything more serious going on in your shul besides juggling after Havdalah?
That is serious. I mean, it's the symbol, you know? It's like we're entering the new week. I have all these things to juggle. It's perfect. It's perfect. But,
So you brought some of your personality to juggling. How do you get other people in your shul to give their personality to what's going on?
So I want to share one story with you about one member of my shul. I'm going to call him Samuel. And Samuel was one gentleman in my shul, very timid, sort of shy character. And he comes to shul, he's on time every day, but sort of sits in the corner, doesn't say much, and he's out before Kiddush. Just a very to himself kind of person. And this past Pesach, I was hosting this whole big open community Seder. And of course, I invited him. And the goal for me in this Seder was I just wanted to create a space where, and I told people in advance, like if you're coming to my Seder, the goal is I want you to share a bit of yourself. I want you to open up a little bit, show us something we don't know about. And so when everyone arrived, they found on their plate a little card with something that I was asking of them, specifically of them, that they were going to share through the Seder. So the time came. I was waiting for my moment for Samuel. We got to Hallel, and I asked him to share what was on his card. And on his card was, tell us about a song that you find yourself singing. And so Samuel, a timid guy, a quiet guy, his eyes sparked up a little bit, and he said, well, actually, I've been thinking about it since I read the card. And there's one song that I often sing just walking down the street. And I sometimes think, I wonder how the Jewish people felt when they left Egypt, and maybe they felt something like this. And he took a pause, and Samuel from the corner of the shul, Samuel from leaving before Kiddush begins, opened up and he said, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. And everybody, the 30 people at my table from all over the community, we all joined in Hallel. Hallelujah, Hallelujah. And Samuel led us in song for the next 2 minutes, and it was awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You know, one of the things, Rav Adam, that I noticed very powerful in the displays this evening were the years on the different musmakhim. And you've been a rabbi for a lot longer than myself, than Ben. You're one of the senior cohorts. So I turn to you, the wise rabbi, to ask you, how do we know we're making a difference? We try to inspire, we try to move, but how do you know in the end of the day that you're making a difference?
That's a great question.
I thought of it.
I think...
because you told me you wanted me to ask you that question.
Yeah. I know that. A number of years ago, I called Ravavi for advice. I was going to testify in front of a committee, a parliamentary committee in Canada, about the situation of the Jewish community in Venezuela. We had visited there together, and I called him for advice and before the testimony, and he said very simply, it was really beautiful advice. He said, when somebody asks you a question, pause, think about it. Even if you have the answer right away, just take a moment to process the question and to show them that you're thinking about it. So, Chai, even though I asked you to ask me that question, I'm going to pause for a moment and think about it. And I'll say that if anybody tells you that they know they're making a difference, that they are the difference maker, don't believe them. I think doubt and self-doubt to a certain degree and humility is of course healthy. But because I knew you were going to ask that question, I brought a little bit of show and tell. And I want to tell you just a very quick story about this pen. This is a Mont Blanc pen. Very, very fancy pen. I'm trying to impress you.
Good French.
And thank you very much. And my wife bought me a Mont Blanc pen, not this pen, for our first wedding anniversaries. Back in 2005, she bought me the pen, which I lost within the first month or so of having the pen. She then bought me a replacement pen, and that pen was stolen from a bag in the Amsterdam airport. And I lost two Mont Blanc, very expensive pens. And I was sitting at the Shabbos table. We had some guests over Friday night. And I don't know how the topic of losing fancy pens came up, but I told myself that I basically was the proud owner of two different Mont Blanc pens, and I no longer own a Mont Blanc pen. And there was a member of the community at the table, a very, very generous, very lovely guy. Your member's name was Samuel?
Yes.
I'll call mine Samuel also.
Excellent.
So on
It's
Monday
like
morning,
Eliyahu. He just sort of shows up at
so
different places.
on Monday morning, there is a brand new Mont Blanc pen on my desk, a beautiful pen, a gift from Samuel and his family. And I was so...
Give me, Samuel's real name and a phone
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was so moved by this, and I use that pen every opportunity I have, every meeting I have. I would take out that pen, and then Samuel's son became bar mitzvah, and when I met with the family, I pulled out the pen. I was so proud to show him that I was using the pen, and then sadly Samuel's wife passed away at a very young age, and when I went to the house to take notes for the funeral, I brought the pen. And I kept it with me wherever I went. And then we had an event at the synagogue. The then president of the state of Israel, Shimon Peres, came to Shar HaShemayim for a visit. And one of the things we do with every dignitary who visits the synagogue, we have a guest book that they'll come to sign in. We'll take a photo op. And I was standing there. We're waiting for the president of Israel to come in. And we're all in position. And we had heard that he had just landed in the airport, and he was going to take a motorcade from the airport to the synagogue, which incidentally takes about 2 minutes to get from the airport to the synagogue with a motorcade, about 25 without. And we were waiting for him, and I looked down, and I noticed that they had put a disposable Bic pen, right next to the guest book. So I quickly pulled my Mont Blanc out of my pocket, and I took the Bic and put the pen there, and the president of the state of Israel used Samuel's pen to sign the guest book. So I called Samuel afterwards. I said, Samuel, I just want to let you know that the pen that you and your late wife bought for me, were so generous to buy for me, the president of the state of Israel used it to sign the guest book of Congregation Shar HaShemayim. And Samuel said to me, he said, I have bad news and good news. The bad news is the pen is no longer yours. He said, I am going to take the pen back. I will mount it with a photograph of the president, together with me and the president of the synagogue signing the guest book, and I'm going to donate it to the synagogue's museum on the condition that the synagogue auctions it off in 50 years to benefit the congregation. That's the bad news, is the pen's no longer yours. The good news is that I'm buying you a new pen on one condition: it has to be more expensive than the old pen. So, sure enough, we went shopping together at the Mont Blanc store in downtown Montreal, and I bought a new pen. A few years later, I'm standing there at the site in Auschwitz, in the Auschwitz Museum, with the Prime Minister of Canada, with Justin Trudeau. And he's signing the guest book of Auschwitz. And the Prime Minister has his own pen. He doesn't use a big pen, and the advanced people all make sure everything's there, and the pen is sitting there, and I have my pen in my pocket, but I can't really find a way to use my new pen. And he starts to sign. He actually took about 20 minutes alone in his car before going to the place where the guest would be to compose what his message might be. He wrote a few drafts. He gave me a copy of one of the drafts that he wrote, and then finally he sat down with the guest book and started to write. And if you Google Prime Minister Trudeau guest book Auschwitz, you'll see his message. And you'll notice that his message is written in 2 different color inks because he ran out of ink halfway through. But who had a pen? So I called up Samuel. I said, Samuel, I want a new pen. And he took back the original pen, and now here I have the pen that I don't know what I did with it, but I better go home with it. The pen, here I have my new pen, and always looking for an opportunity to upgrade this pen. So in a long answer to your brilliant question is that, how do you know you make a difference? I don't know. But over the years, every rabbi picks up stories like this, where you can really make a difference, have an impact in somebody's life, and come away with with a moment of inspiration for myself that keeps me flying high and keeps me going and keeps me inspired. So that's a long answer to a short question. I don't know if we're making a difference, but I do know that I've got a lot of good stories.
Beautiful.
I want to thank both of you for being here with us this evening. I
Yes,
know as
yes,
rabbis,
yes.
you have a lot to juggle
Yes, a
on
lot
your
to juggle.
schedule. But thanks for joining us.
Okay,
anyway.
let's do it.
Here we go.